So, hello and a very warm welcome to all of you who are attending this live interview with Swagata. I'm Piyush and I welcome all of you to this session. Today, it's going to be a really interesting session. We have Swagata with us who has achieved his dream GMAT, GMAT score and the target B school in INSEAD. I'm pretty sure that it's a great feeling. I remember when I was planning to do my second MBA, INSEAD was right there on the top of my list. In fact, the application process of INSEAD is so huge and so tedious that a lot of people don't even apply to INSEAD, just thinking that okay, they have to complete like 22 essays. But I'm very happy that Swagata has achieved her dream. In fact, today is a very good day. We received another a message from another of our student who had converted INSEAD January intake. So that makes it 4 students in INSEAD this year from GMAT family. But without any further ado, I'm gonna invite Swagata to this meeting. So a warm welcome to all of you once again who just joined. I see about 9 people are live. So please let me know if my audio is fine. I know it is fine, but just a quick hi. The audio is fine really helps. So without any further ado, I'm gonna invite Swagata. So welcome Swagata stream. Uh, how was your feeling when you got that interview call? The final admit call from INSEAD. How was that feeling?
Thank you, Piyush. To be honest, I'm still processing it. When I got the call, I was actually thinking if any of this is real. It was my dream school. And when I got that call, I didn't know how to react. So I'm very excited, very happy, and a little bit nervous as well because it's going to be a big transition for me,
Lot
right?
of
Both,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So right now, I would say it's an amalgamation of all kinds of emotions, and I'm just going with the flow, enjoying this.
So do they still call you like in the old days? They used to ring you on your number and inform you, or was it an email that you received from them first?
Yeah, so actually, it's a call. I was about to,
Oh,
have this afternoon nap, and I was just about to sleep, and I saw that 0065 number, and I just woke up at an instant. And when I took the call, it was my admission officer, and I was like elated. Yeah, it was
great,
awesome.
great. Okay. So we'll definitely talk about the entire NCR process. Like, how did you ace it? And if I am right, like between the first attempt and the second attempt of your GMAT, you took about a month of preparation, and then from then to your NCR application was another month, basically. So you basically ace both these two steps in 1 month time period, approximately, which in itself is a big task. So let's start with the first part of your journey. But before that, let's hear from you. Like I know you, but a lot of people who are watching this stream live may not know you. So it will be great if you can introduce yourself, like, talk about what do you do, like professionally, and yeah, just go about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Piyush. So, warm welcome to everyone who's attending this session. A little bit about me. Professionally, I am a CAE analyst working in the field of electric mobility for a global automotive corporation in the R&D sector. So, I have been dealing with clients and suppliers from both Europe and Asia. Prior to that, I have completed my master's research program from IIT Madras in automotive engineering and bachelor's in mechanical. So it's been almost like 5 years with the technical expertise, and I thought it's time for me to move to the next step of my career, right? And I wanted to have an all-rounded business acumen, and for that, I decided that I'm going to pursue an MBA abroad. The reason being, I wanted to have this global exposure in a global platform. So yeah, I started with my GMAT preparation, and thankfully I got into INSEAD, and I will be joining the MBA program for the December 2023 cohort. Yeah, that's
Okay.
about me.
So you're joining the spring, like not technically spring intake, but yeah, let's call it the spring
Yeah,
intake. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the GMAT journey. So you mentioned that you thought about global MBA. So when was this? When was this that this thought struck you and you started preparing seriously for GMAT? The reason I'm saying seriously because a lot of working professionals think about GMAT preparation and then they end up starting it after a year or 6 months of thinking about it. So when did it start? What did you do in the first attempt? Like just a quick overview of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was an on again, off again relationship with me and GMAT. So I started thinking about MBA maybe pre-COVID, but yeah, I didn't get that push. I thought, okay, maybe let's try it next year. So finally, last year, when I kind of decided that I'm going to seriously prepare for GMAT, so first I did was research a bit about what GMAT exactly is, how is the structure, what is the time duration of the exam. So once I had this research done, what I did was I took a mock test. I mean, without even studying. The reason why I took that mock test was I wanted to ensure that I know where I stand, what are my weaknesses, what are my strengths. That way, I am sure that what's the next step for me is going to be. So, as expected, I didn't do well in that mock test. I think I was in the range of 500s or something. I did that mock test from MBA.com. And
Okay.
I guess coming from the STEM background, I didn't find the quant to be that difficult. But yeah,
Mhm.
verbal
Wow.
was I have no words to describe, to be honest. So the first thing what I did was I got the OG books, the official guidebooks, and that's where I started my preparation. I went to different websites, different platforms like GMAT Club forums and stuff. Yeah, that's how I did. I didn't take any other help, and it didn't go well, yeah, as expected, because if you look at the OG guidebook, for sure they have a lot of practice questions and good amount of, yeah, questions. But if you look at the study material, I would say it's more like anecdotes that they give for each of the quant and verbal. And
Mhm.
if you want to score well for verbal, you need to have a very structured approach. You need to understand what the question is asking you, right? The second thing I found the problem with OG was they do not give a detailed solution. I mean, you can only know whether you have done the answer right or wrong. So if I have done the right answer, I don't know whether I did it for the right reason. And if I
Mhm.
didn't do the answer right, I don't know what went wrong. Correct. So this
Mhm.
kind of feedback loops I never found in OG. So that's the first time when I gave the official exam and I scored a 610. And yeah, I realized that all right, this is not gonna work. I really need to find someone or find a platform where I will get a structured process for the whole GMAT exam, right? So after that, yeah, I went to the website and I found there are like lot of online courses. And prior to GMAT Wiz, I took eGMAT course, the online course. And the quant was pretty good. I did well, but again, I was struggling with verbal. I mean, I was not performing as I had expected, right? So then I started reflecting what went wrong. What do I want? How am I going to ace this verbal? And what I felt was the problem with me was that I was not sure if my approach is correct. There was no one beside me who's going to teach me that, well, this is right or this is wrong. So, structurally, when you look at the verbal, it's not just grammatical rules or regulation, it's more about your thought process or your strategies that you're going to use when you are solving CR or RC passages, right? That's when I came across GMAT Wiz. And prior to that, you used to have these free webinars for students, and I did attend one, and I met Sunita ma'am there. So when GMAT Wiz strike me the second time, I went to your website. There were free trial versions, so I went through it. I saw the course. It was very detailed as well as compact. I mean, you guys are not hovering everywhere, and that was the problem with me in verbal. There were so many materials, there were so many concepts. Like by the end, I kind of got bored with it. I mean, when is this gonna end? And yeah, so I wanted a compact structure so that, like you said, I prepared with GMAT Vs for only a month and I scored my target score. So then I thought that, all right, let's do this free consultation. And I talked to you, Piyush, and I told you my story. And I told you that I was performing well in the quant section. My score was between, let's say, 48 to 50. So I was pretty confident about that. But when it came to the verbal, I was like scoring between 25 to 35. I mean, what was that? So the problem was, if I'm lucky, if I get this easy questions, then I'm scoring good. But if I get this nightmarish question like the assumption question, or when it came to RC, if I get story about sociology or history, I would just stop using my brain. So I would be scoring around
I can
25.
totally understand that. Like
Yeah.
I remember my days when I used to struggle with verbal, and at the time of clicking on the submit button after completing every verbal test, like there is hardly a fraction of a second to 2 second window in which they show you your score, and in that window I always used to pray to God that please give me a good score this time around. I'm not sure what's going to happen, so I can totally relate to
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
feeling.
So that's what happened. Yeah.
And I'm very sure that a lot of people, in fact, there's Teja who's saying, yeah, that's true. I also feel that. So thank you for that. And if the good thing is, if you're having that feeling, it doesn't mean that you're not going to do well on the test. Right? I scored a 740. I've not entered in INSEAD till now, but there was someone sitting in front of you who had a similar story, got a 700, has gotten a bit from INSEAD and will be joining INSEAD soon. So dreams do come true. And trust me, Swagata, a lot of people come to me and ask me that, okay, I took my first mock test like on MBA.com. I've been out of touch with studies for so long and I've scored a 520 or 530. Can I ever score a 700 and enter a top 10 B school? That's the kind of question that I get almost every single day. So it really takes up a lot of, let's say, courage and patience and hard work to get to that level. So really hats off to you for that, for putting in the effort which is required and going in the right direction. And even after failing on the first attempt where you scored a 610 after studying, you looked back upon, reflected upon the mistakes that you made, and you made sure that the next attempt is properly planned. And that is something which is important. And 1 month to get to that 700 is not an easy task. So kudos to you on that particular respect. Kudos to you.
Absolutely, Piyush, you are absolutely right. I mean, can still remember days when I would just give up. I mean, okay, I'm done. I'm not gonna do anymore. It's like taking so much time. You start getting little demotivated, of course. Not to mention that you have this work as well. I mean, I'm a
Full
full
time job,
time
yeah.
job I have, and so it takes lot of motivation, lot of courage to maybe wake up and start studying. So I did put almost 5 to 6 hours a day towards the end. So I would start in the morning before my office work, and then in the evening as well. Yeah. So obviously, I would say it's a lot of hard work, but nothing is impossible, to be honest. I mean, it's all about consistency, and as long as you are doing hard work, there's no stopping you, to be honest. Yeah. So for me also,
Sure.
it went the same way. And finally, when I got connected to you, when I told you my story, even you agreed that I can get a good push for the verbal section. And you told me about this one-on-one tutoring, right? And that was what exactly I was looking for. And I told you, Piyush, you were actually life savior for me, because that's what I was expecting out of you. And so when you finally connected me to Sunita Sangvi ma'am, I was elated because I have already attended her webinar, and to find her as my mentor, I was like, awesome. So we started with this session, and yeah, so like the good thing about tutors are that you can ask questions live, you can clear your doubt exactly at that point of time. And I really loved how ma'am took the approach. So she would be giving me one question, and she would ask me to speak up, like to tell what I'm thinking. So when I
Leave your
did
mind
that,
out loud, basically. Yeah.
exactly. So when I did that, she was able to understand, how I was reading the question. Let's say, take for example, sentence correction. It's a long sentence, right? So she wants to know how I was splitting up the sentence, and was my thought process, how was I taking the answer choices, why was I rejecting the answer choice or accepting it. So by the end of the session, she completely understood me, and then she gave me accurate feedback on what went right and what went wrong. So those kind of one-on-one feedback session helped me a lot. I was able to create a very beautiful error log that ma'am always told me to do that. And you know what happened? So just before my exam date, it's impossible to revise all the chapters or everything. It's
Mhm.
impossible, right? So what
Right.
I did was I just went to the error log because it was
Okay.
so detailed for me. I went to the error log and I read whatever I have written before, and I kept that in mind. And yeah, my exam went pretty good.
So let's talk a little bit about this error log as well. And in the meantime, if the audience has any questions, please feel free to ask. This has been a very silent session. Like I see 30 plus people, one of the highest live audience count that we have had, but has been very silent. It's like I think Swagata, you're covering so many points yourself. People are not asking any questions, but do feel free to participate and ask anything that you want. But what about this error log? Let's talk about what did you maintain in this error log that you mentioned, basically.
Sure. So, well, error log for me was basically an Excel sheet, and I divided it as quant and verbal. So, even in verbal, I divided it as SC, as CR, as RC. Then, when you go to SC, I would be doing it as assumption based question, strengthening question, weaken question, inference questions. So, every time I give a mock test in GMAT Viz, if I am getting the answer correct, I would write in the remarks what were the key points that I understood, what I did right. And let's say if I made an incorrect choice, I would immediately write it down. What was the correct option, of course, and what went wrong, and how I'm going to improve that. So, like I said, it was a very detailed error log.
So more
And by
importantly, the reason basically why you were
exactly.
getting things wrong. So just any example of what this reason would look like, because you mentioned that you used to review as well before the test. So what would a typical reason be, and how would it help you in revision? Just curious to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's take an example of an assumption based question, because those are the most dreaded question for me. I would not do well with the assumption question. And well, before I met Sunita ma'am, how I used to, approach the assumption question is I would read the question, I would try to understand what it is saying, and then I would immediately go to the answer choices. I did not do what you call as pre-thinking, and that's a very important aspect. So when you say pre-thinking, I mean, a lot of people get confused what exactly it is. Like, do you have to come up with an assumption question by yourself, right? So the answer is not that. What happens in the pre-thinking is basically when you read the sentences, first you try to connect the dots, and then you try to anticipate what is going to be the next line. If it is not matching, that is where your assumption is. So when you go to the answer choice, it becomes very easy for you to find the correct answer and eliminate all the wrong answers. So this was how let's say it's just one example of assumption. So if I did well in the assumption question, in the error log, as a remark, I would write, take the key points what I did within that 1.5 minutes. And if I did not do right, so I would also write it down, like what went wrong and how the actual answer is. So yeah, this was how my error log looked like.
A very very interesting point made by you. Like a lot of people actually think that pre-thinking means pre-thinking the answer, but very rightly said that pre-thinking is about understanding the context and preempting what is going to come next, basically. So again, I'm just trying to like elaborate a little on this part because this is a very very important aspect that you covered, Swagata. That as you read information, you should not just be reading information; you should be processing that information and ensuring that the logic which is flowing in the right direction. And if the direction is something which you are not like you're not expecting it to be, then you know exactly where the wrong turn happened, and you can actually pick the answer pretty easily. So that's the kind of processing, that's the kind of like information that you have to process when you read. So one more question, Swagata, on this part. So a lot of people say that okay, if I process information this much in CR, or let's say in sentence correction, a lot of people even say, even experts say that in intended meaning approach, if you take the meaning based approach, it takes too long to do it. So what do you think about that? Like, is it time consuming to kind of put in that effort to process the information, or like how is that? Like, according to you?
Yeah. Well, practice makes a man perfect, right? So when you start it, of course, you are going to take time because it's new for you. You don't know how you are going to approach it. So I would say when you start preparing, don't think about the timing aspect as well. I mean, don't do that. Try to understand exactly what you are going to. Like you said, let's say, take an example of sentence correction. um, an average time I would say should be 90 seconds when you are in the actual exam, right? But when I started, I think I gave maybe 2 to 3 minutes for that question when I started, or maybe 4 to 5 minutes. It's absolutely fine. Once you started practicing, it will become a second nature to you. You don't even realize that you are doing all this pre-thinking. It becomes so natural that when you look at the time, you would be able to solve the problem well within time. But when you are starting, please don't think about the timing aspect. Try to learn as much as you can and try to develop your mindset so that by the time when it actually comes to the real exam, yeah, you will be able to solve it, no doubt about it.
No, very well said, Swagata. In fact, when you started off with your answer, the first line that you said was practice makes a man perfect. I would just like to amend that a bit. So it's not about practice making a man perfect; it's about the right practice making a man
Yeah,
perfect. In fact,
yeah,
this
sure.
is the very line because of which a lot of people struggle in GMAT. They literally think that okay, it's just practice that will make me perfect. So what they do is they pick up more and more questions, solve more and more questions, and then they think that it's gonna get better. But what is
No, yeah.
important is that you
Yeah.
stick to the right methods first,
Yeah,
basically. So,
exactly. So when I say practice, what I meant to say is, if you practice it, you would be able to get it as a second nature to you. But
hmm,
you should also keep in mind what you are learning and how you are rejecting the answer choices. That's very important. Most of the time the answer choices are so close to each other, you would not exactly know which one to choose. I mean, that's what happened during my first GMAT. I mean, in the end I was just like, okay, let me just try this one. I hope that this is the right answer. So that's how the test makers of GMAT, they are very experienced. So when it comes to, let's say, sentence correction, how I approached first was I was very much into the grammar, like look for the grammatical mistakes. The problem is when you will be getting the answer choice for 700 plus questions, you would have exactly two answer choices. Those will be grammatically correct. There would be no grammar error. But out of this, there would be one answer choice which is going to change the entire meaning of your original question. So if you do not take into account the meaning of that particular question, you will end up, making the mistake. So like you said, practice, but it should be proper practice or the correct practice. Yeah.
very well said. Very well said. So we'll move to the INSEAD application part, but just one last question on the GMAT preparation. So basically, like you use the GMAT Quiz coursework, the online course as well for your preparation along with the private tutoring session that you had. So what did you find helpful or different from the in the GMAT Quiz course compared to the other material that you used earlier, basically?
Yeah, so I would say GMAT Whiz course is very structured and compact. When I took eGMAT, they have a very good quant session, but when it came to verbal, it was so elaborative. I mean, most of the time you may not exactly need it in your actual answering questions, right? So for me, GMAT Whiz was very structured. I was able to complete a lot of things on time, and the detailed solution that you provide is very well written. I mean, if I am answering a question correct, I am able to go to the detailed solution and I'm able to understand that I did right. And if I did something wrong, the solution helped me to understand, what went wrong, and I would immediately put it in the error log. So why I'm trying to bring this error log, because it kind of changed my whole life. It kind of changed how I was preparing for the GMAT. So that is what I really loved about the GMAT whiz. And like I said, I took the tutoring, and one-on-one tutors, like you have this amazing verbal experts, I would say. And if I have a doubt, I would just ping her, and she would immediately reply to me. So from her side, I can see the enthusiasm, and she was also making sure that she's appreciating me when I'm doing right. That way, I felt confident that okay, it is
Motivated.
possible. Yeah, because if you keep saying that no, you are doing all this wrong, you start kind of getting very much
Questioning yourself.
demotivated. Yeah, question
Yeah.
yourself like what am I doing? So ma'am made sure that she gave me the right motivation, and with every session I just became more and more confident. The third thing I liked about the GMAT whiz are the mock tests, or I would say the whiz quiz. You have put that term whiz quiz. So what I loved about that is they're very much personalized. So when I'm doing these quizzes, and let's say I didn't do well in that particular section, let's say assumption, so after my exam, they would give a short analysis report of what I did wrong, and then they would again give me a short summary of that particular topic that I was doing wrong. So I don't again have to go back to the video lessons and read it out, but I can just go to the summary and take those notes. So this kind of things I really found different as compared to the other platforms that I
Platforms.
used. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's now get to the application bit. So why INSEAD? I know like the answer is very obvious, but still, why INSEAD and which other schools did you apply to? Please.
All right, yeah. So I have been, working for the past 5 years, and the first thing was I did not want to stay away from the workforce for 2 years. So I was looking for schools that are providing the 1 year MBA course, and those were mostly Europe based. I mean, if you look at the USB schools, they usually provide the 2 years
2 year
MBA
MBA.
course.
Right. Right.
So at that point of time itself, I was able to filter out the US and the Europe schools, right? And why INSEAD? Well, apart from the fact that it's one of the top global MBA schools, I really love the fact that it is a 10 months program, and I can tell you why. The first thing is it will help me with the time management skill. I mean, when you go to the management level, you have to manage the time, right? You have to prioritize things. And so I feel like this kind of experiences I would get from day one itself. So that is one thing. The second thing, as I said in the first session itself, that I was looking for a global exposure. I have been working with a multinational company, and what I realized was when you work with people who are not from your country of origin or from your culture, you kind of get a lot of perspectives from different people. That kinds of make everything much more interesting and better. So if you look at the INSEAD cohort, they consist of almost like 100 different nationalities, countries, and from different domains. So I can only imagine the kind of conversation or interaction that I'm going to have in the cohort, right?
Just
And
hearing that particular point actually gives me goosebumps. Like you're gonna study with so many different people. That's really really great. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, and finally the networking. I mean, there is a saying in INSEAD that whichever country you go to, you're gonna find at least one in INSEAD alum. So you can understand um, the expansion of the INSEAD
I think you
community,
should
right?
not say even country. You should say city wise. So
For sure,
because
exactly,
it's a
yeah.
small place nowadays. Good.
So
So how did you
exactly,
approach your application for NCR? Like if I remember, they had 22 essays, like including all the small essays
everything.
in the advance and everything
Yeah.
that you have. Like just having that number in mind kind of makes me feel like leaving the school, not even apply there. Like 22 essays. But yeah, jokes apart, how did you plan it out? What was the steps that you took and basically the application?
So yeah, correct. Okay, one good thing now I felt what I did was I looked into the application long back, before I even started seriously with the GMAT. You can always register to the program. You don't have to
Mhm.
submit it. You can always log in, register. So the good thing about when you register is you will get the whole application in your eyesight, right?
Mhm.
So whenever I get time, let's say, okay, I have this eureka moment for one particular essay, I would just
Question.
note it down. Yeah, it need not be structured. It was not structured at all. It was like bits and pieces. So after I gave my GMAT exam, I got the score. It became very easy for me to connect the dots and formulate it. Maybe that's why I would say I was able to complete it in one time. But in the hindsight, it was going on like for past maybe 4 or 5 months. Yeah.
That's a
So
very, very, very important lesson. In fact, all of you who are watching this is probably the best lesson that we have. There's so many good things that we have learned from Swagata, but I'm putting it right on the top because this is a big mistake a lot of people do, that they just plan their application at the last moment. Not that we don't succeed. That we had just to tell you, Swagata, I'm not sure if you know this, but we had a student Manish who also was joining INSEAD in the fall intake, basically, like just 4 months before you are joining, and this guy started working on his application 10 days before the deadline. He made it through, but it was a huge task in itself, and he had to apply to Kellogg and Cornell also in the same timeline. So people do succeed. I'm not saying that, but you're actually going on a very fine line if you're doing that kind of a, let's say, exercise. So please make sure that you plan things in advance. And one thing that your Swagata said, that eureka moment, you never know when it will strike. Like you are searching for the right answer and it just comes to you sometimes. So you give yourself time. So make sure after this session, if you want to do one thing, go to the websites of the respective colleges that you want to go to apply to. So at least go to them, check out their essays, see what they're asking, and start thinking about that. And the second thing that you do is register on GMAT this platform. But yeah,
for sure,
going
for
back,
sure. Yeah.
so going back to you again, Swagata. Sorry for interruption, but I really
No,
felt
no.
that research was very
No,
important.
yeah. So let's say even if you do not register, you can still find these questions in lot of online platforms. Like lot of people do write the questions beforehand, or maybe you can see the questions of the past year itself, and it doesn't change much. At least for INSEAD, I saw that these questions were going on maybe for the past 3 4 years. So you can find these questions without even registering. You can find questions in the internet. A lot of people do that. So what I would suggest to the people maybe who are interested to apply for INSEAD is, like Piyush said, it's a very exhaustive application process. You have lot of essays, so it's very good thing if you know beforehand what your questions are, right? So that whenever you get time, you just write one line and maybe keep it back. You go back to your GMAT preparation and do stuff, and in the end you can connect the dots and make a very good answer. Yeah.
Great, great to hear that. So we have a question from Astha. So she's asking about for INSEAD is GRE accepted? I think they accepted. You can find that information very easily, Astha, on INSEAD website. So I'm not taking that question up as of now, but I'm most likely that they accept GRE.
They do,
But
yeah.
what kind of interview questions do they ask? Like, so Swagata, you have recently had the interview, so again, just at a high level, obviously you cannot talk about all the questions, but let's say which were the most like difficult questions or unique questions that you were asked, or at a broad level, the general kind of questions, like what did you focus on, basically.
Yeah, Piyush, first of all, I won't say the term interview because it was not an interview. It was a conversation over a
Interaction.
cup of coffee, to be honest,
Yeah.
really. So
Hmm.
I had two alumni interview. First was with a graduate who is staying in Singapore, and the other was in India. So I had one virtual and one in person. So
Okay.
with both of them, the typical interview atmosphere that you have in your mind, you should throw it out, because INSEAD interviews are not like that. It's just a conversation, or these people even say use the word chat, so you are just chatting with
Hmm.
them. Basically the interview questions are not out of the box. What they try to understand is whether whatever you have written in the application, was that the real you or was it someone different. That is what they try to do. they want to know that you are going to fit into the program. So this alumni, they have already lived that life, right? They have
Mm, mm.
graduated from there. So they are going to be the best judge of you. And I really found this aspect very appealing as compared to the other B schools. So when you are talking to alum, they would be asking questions based on why MBA at this point of time, maybe why not after 5 years, or why not before, and why INSEAD. So, one thing I would definitely like to add is, if you are not very confident with these answers, they're going to dig you more on that to connect the dots. So, make sure that you have the story ready and it is coherent and it is in line with the application. They would have your resume and they would have your application. So if you are lying, they're gonna know it, right? So that was one thing. The second thing, well, for me, since I told you I am into electric mobility space, this alum was kind of interested to know how India is looking towards the EVs,
Gearing
right?
up
I
for,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's a new topic, and he wanted to know my viewpoints. But this question was very personal since I was into that
Mm.
domain. Of course, it's not going to happen to you, so don't worry about it.
But yeah, the more
um
important thing is your viewpoint is something. The subject really doesn't matter much. What is
no, yeah,
important is how you present your viewpoint about broader things and things which are going to change the future. I think people
exactly.
can be asked about even how was COVID taken up, and if you were a prime minister of India or even let's say US, president of US, how would you have tackled the COVID situation? So they're not interested in the answers; they're more interested in your opinion or your thought process. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So again, they asked me. So I did my masters. So this lady, she asked me why I did not think about PhD. Why MBA? So
Mm.
they asked me questions on that. It was mostly based on my resume, whatever I put, and she also asked me like, what was the biggest failure? That was one interesting question. But they, yeah. So one more interesting question was regarding the international exposure. So I told them that I have been working in an MNC and I have been working with people from Asia, from Europe. So she was interested to know if I found any cultural difference or cultural shock or similarities on that. And if I found it, how did I tackle it? So I felt that that was a very important question because, like I said, the cohort is going to be multicultural, and she wanted to know whether I will be able to, mix and mingle with these people. So, yeah, these were some of the questions that they asked. And well, for the last 15 minutes, I got the opportunity to ask them
To ask them.
question. Yeah, and I would say you need to take this opportunity because you would be able to hear in person about the life of INSEAD. They have lived through that, right? So you can ask everything that you did not find in the brochure or website, maybe the student life, or how that person handled this intense program, or how was their post MBA career, what was the ROI. I asked all these questions and they were more than happy to answer it. So yeah, that was
That's
my interview.
so great to hear. For most people, asking the question is like another question that they have to prepare for. So that's really good to know. Like it has to be genuine, it has to be honest
Yeah.
at the end of the day. So one more
Maybe
question.
I would add,
Yeah,
sorry,
please,
maybe
please
I
go
would
ahead. I'll
add,
ask a question later. Yeah, please.
yeah. So I would add one thing, that it's better that you prepare with at least two, three questions that you need to ask the interviewer, so that at that point your mind shouldn't go blank and you are not wasting your time. So I would say just prepare two, three questions, and with the flow, I am pretty sure you can ask more. But just to be more prepared, yeah, take two, three pointers and you can do well.
That's really great to know. So, anything else apart from the discussion that we had, you found challenging with the NCR application process, and you would want people to focus on, basically.
Yeah, all right. So the first, maybe a lot of people may be asking, is the GMAT score. What should be the ideal GMAT score for INSEAD? And I would say there is no ideal score as long as you are above the average of the cohort. If you have a very well-rounded profile, I would say don't hesitate and don't stop yourself just because you did not hit that magic number of 740 or 760, the second thing I would say is they take the international experience very
Very
seriously,
important.
and the, yeah, reason being, you are going to work with a diverse cohort. So make sure that you mention it. And again, you need not travel abroad to gain that international experience. It can be maybe you are working in an MNC and you have dealt with clients from other countries, or maybe you were a tour guide as a part-time job and you have helped the foreign tourists in India, or maybe in your undergraduation you were working with this campus exchange students, getting used to the Indian culture. So all these instances are going to add up to your international
So they're
experience.
basically looking at, are you like have you been in touch with other people from other cultures? So you have been
Exactly.
exposed to that. That's what they're interested
Exactly. Yeah. So that is one thing. The second thing is the LOR. I would say it has more weightage than the GMAT score itself. So you
in.
need to provide two letter of recommendation, and I would say you need not get it from the CEO, right? When you look at the LOR, it's very detailed. They would ask questions that only a supervisor or someone who has worked with you can answer. So let's say I'm an analyst and I have not directly talked to the CEO. So if I ask it from the CEO, he won't be giving a lot of justice to my LOR. But
They
if I
won't have
ask
enough material to respond to
Exactly.
those questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I ask my manager or maybe supervisor, I'm pretty sure he's gonna say a lot about me when it comes to LOR. So yeah, make sure that you take into account the LOR also. It's very important part of the whole application process. And like I said, give yourself time and show your essays to as many people as you can. People who you can trust, who can give you good feedback. Lot of times, what happens is when this question about describe yourself, that was the hardest question I felt, and you kind of don't know what to tell about yourself, right? So to tackle that question, you can always ask others to tell about you, like what do they think about you. When you ask questions like that, you kind of get different perceptions from people.
Viewpoints are
Yeah, and it just you have to connect the dots and write a story. So yeah, I
very,
would say keep all these things in mind, and there is no reason how INSEAD can stop you from getting into it. Yeah.
very well said, Swagata. In fact, a lot of people think that it's in CR, so I shouldn't apply if I don't have a 720, 730, 740 kind of a score. Just to give you an idea, we have four admits in CR this year. One guy is a 740, another guy is a 720. The name that like the information that we received today, that person has scored a 710, if I am right. So Agatha has scored a 700. All four have NCR admits. We have helped apply another candidate the 680 as well. And we are very hopeful that this candidate should also basically be getting an interview call and hopefully an admit from NCR. So it's more about your application at the end of the day, what you present in front of the B schools, who you are, and uh, with how much clarity have you thought about your long-term goals, and how does the college fit into that. So that's what we are
Exactly.
basically looking at the end of the day. So, for example, this student who is basically applied with a 680 on with NCR, basically she has a very clear picture about her long-term career goals, and every step of her career was very well planned. And LORs also are coming from good people who can vouch for her capabilities. So again, at the end of the day, that's a confidence that like having yourself and your long-term career goals. So always keep that in mind and make sure you plan things in advance, as Swagata mentioned, that it should always be planned in advance, that will come momentum come any day. And who knows, you could be the next person basically joining your dream B school. It could be INSEAD, it could be a Harvard or a Wharton, doesn't matter. But the main thing which matters is the consistency and the effort that one has to put in. So thank you so much, Swagata, for all the insights into the process. It was great interacting with you. Probably this today was one interview where I had to ask the least number of questions because you had everything covered really, really well. So it was really, really great having you here today. Thank you so much for helping all of us out in the entire journey. Any closing comments from your side? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's there is this mantra that I saw it in a movie and kind of changed my life. And that goes like don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. You are always scared. You may feel that I'm not good enough. You get this imposter syndrome that, well, there are people who have done a lot more than you. But to be honest, there is always a USP or the X factor that only you can have it, and you cannot compare yourself with others. I would say work hard and give ample amount of time for the application. Make sure that you understand why you are applying for an MBA now, and what are your short term and long term goals. As long as you have all these pointers in your mind, I don't think it will be that difficult to get into an INSEAD or a Harvard or any top B schools. So I would say just make sure that you get the story right. Really think about it. Sit down and think about why you want to do an MBA. Most of the time, we feel that, well, everyone is doing an MBA, so let's try it out. Or maybe you are doing it for the money. Of course, it's a very important part. We do it for the money, but INSEAD wants to know more than that. I mean, 100% people come there for the ROIs, for the jobs that they get after MBA. But you need to show that you are really into pursuing an MBA. You have researched your program, you know the school in and out. And one more advice I would like to give that really helped me is reach out to as many alumni as possible, or the current students. When you talk to them, you also kind of get more confident about your short term and long term goals. Maybe you can find people who are in your domain, who are working in the same profile like yours, and when you hear from them directly, it kind of boosts your confidence. So I would say reach out to alumni. They are amazing. I mean, you will definitely get a reply. A lot of them gave their phone numbers also, and I was able to talk to them directly and tell them my plans. And then they also kind of helped me in formulating my essays and giving tips for interview. So uh, your networking will start from here itself. It's just like a pre MBA
Pre-MBA.
stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I would like to say.
Really, really nice thoughts on this. So thank you so much, Swagata. Thank you so much for being here and taking out the time to help everyone. And all of you who want to check out the GMAT List trial, there is a link in the comments here as well as in the chat. So you guys can check this out and do check out the course. And who knows, you could be the next person to be interviewed. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. It was great.